We held it up for you.
Well, not necessarily, although had you locked me out, I have the key and stuff.
Okay, for the record, we are ready.
Hey, welcome to the November 7, 2024 meeting of the Public Safety and Sanitation Committee. My name is Stuart Desser. I'm the chair of the committee. Tonight, we're joined by Assistant District Manager Brendan Firth. This meeting is called to order today, 1832. As a reminder, New York State law requires all committee members not able to attend in person to have their cameras on and their first and last names displayed during the entire meeting. Members of the public who are attending virtually, you can raise any questions or comments you have through the Q&A feature of Zoom. Members of the public who are here in person, you can raise any questions that you have by raising your hand. At this time, following the committee's discussion, we'll field questions from the public. Do we have a volunteer to take minutes tonight?
Yeah, I'll be sending out the minutes.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Do you want to try an experiment?
I'm sorry,
Can I suggest an experiment?
yeah,
If we can turn on the AI companion on
Yeah. I thought we
and
had that.
see what it's not gonna do it for you. The one,
Is
you
this
did a
Zoom?
different one.
This
This
is-
is the Zoom.
I don't know how Zoom works with AI companion.
Yeah, if someone can let me know how to access that, I'm happy to try.
Oh, I know how to do it in a meeting. I'm not sure I know how to do it.
At the beginning, it usually asks you if you want to do AI in the chat or something like that.
This is press settings on the left side of the page. So settings, do you see settings?
There's more.
More,
I'm sorry, we don't have to do this now. We can
Yeah.
do this on there.
Yeah, as I said, happy to experiment going forward, but.
Yeah.
yeah.
I've done it a few times with other meetings and it's not,
It's great.
I'd give it
Not
85%.
perfect, it has to.
We'll do it when we
It's a good
can.
start,
So we'll now
yes.
take attendance by roll call. Brendan will call the roll.
Okay, committee members, when I call your name, please say present. I will announce if there is quorum. Stu Desser,
Present.
Justin Goldberg,
Present.
Gloria Hay,
Present.
Rupal Kakkad,
Present.
Steve Perez,
present.
Michael Ann Rowe,
Present.
Ann Sullivan,
Present.
Peter Zaidi.
Present.
Not only do we have quorum, but we have perfect attendance.
Gold.
We are
Gold star,
back.
gold star, because we missed you.
The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and is almost reflected on the screen before you, but we have our special guest Sandy here, who will speak first about sidewalk sheds and parks, and then we'll resume our regularly scheduled programming. So why don't we start there if there's no objection?
Not just Sandy, the president. Let's see,
Chairman.
chairman.
Chairperson.
Chair.
Chair. Sorry. I'm old.
So, last night at the Parks,
Wait, we do still need to, the agenda is adopted, you do need to mark your ground rules.
Oh, yeah. How
everybody
fast
was
can you
good to
read 'em?
read.
Okay.
We can have the agreement.
Everybody here has been.
The minutes from September's meeting are still being drafted, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and will be sent to you once they're ready to review. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, please observe the following ground rules. No one may speak until granted the floor. Committee members who have a question about committee business or wish to make a motion should raise their hand, either physically or through Zoom, and I'll recognize you to speak. It's very important that only one person speak at a time so that members of the public watching at home can understand what's being said by each committee member. The Zoom chat function for committee members should not be used for committee business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising their hand and being recognized. Chat should only be used by committee members to alert us to any technical difficulties you're having, or to state in writing information like an email address that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. Having said all that, I am going to suggest, as we did in our last meeting, that we suspend the rule requiring committee members to raise their hands, allowing for more informal discussion and free-flowing chat. Are there any objections to that proposition?
As long as we keep it so that we're not talking over each other,
Oh.
so people can
Understood.
Sandy
So,
has
it's
her
a
own rate.
I
order.
was going to, sorry, I raised my hand, but, I was going to say, I was listening to the, audio from it and I could not tell what people were saying because people were talking over top. of each
Okay,
other.
so we'll not cross chat.
If there's just some way to make sure that.
Yeah.
Oh, and we'll
Called
discipline
politeness.
them.
Sorry, I'm the worst interrupter in the world,
It
so.
was an exciting meeting. People were very excited at that. I wonder if Rupal could tell us if she hears everyone clearly, because since she's on.
I can definitely hear everyone, including Sandy, who I can tell is sitting farther away.
Rupal, keep us honest and let us know if we are
Yeah, out of
being,
line.
being bad.
I will. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Okay, last night there was a presentation at the Parks, Landmark and Cultural Affairs Committee of some issues regarding scaffolding at Hammerstone Plaza. And, it was a really very thoughtful and well thought out presentation. And I know there was some discussion about scaffolding has been discussed in this committee. And that, right now, I understand there are several bills in front of city council that they would like us to enhance, probably dealing specifically with parks issues, but also to write a resolution, asking for revisions to some of those bills to really address things that happen in parks. So since this committee has been dealing with scaffolding previously, it seemed like it was a good place for this to land within the board. And I just forwarded, excuse me, to Stu, the presentation that was made by Ann Hirsch from Hammerstone. And it's, there's a very long presentation.
Very good.
It's,
Very excellent presentation.
it's a great history of the park. And it also
Yeah.
talks about, you know, how this is really, it's more than just public safety. It's about parks and our public space. And it's a kind of citywide problem. So I thought if this committee could come up with a really good resolution, we would try and pass it full board, but also take it to borough board and see if we could get it addressed.
A comment about that. I'm just wondering, so we essentially would probably look at, I guess, Keith's latest scaffolding resolution or bill that he's trying to pass. That's, it sounds like it must be almost ready to pass, or?
I'm not sure, Eric Botcher also, as chair, I get his messages,
Yeah.
and he's had two recently about scaffolding. So I think that it's something that the city's looking at, but not from this issue of public parks.
So what was so interesting, because we discussed this at our previous meeting and we're trying to connect what is the public safety angle here, and she so brilliantly presented and really enlightened me about how serious the public safety issues are, especially in the park area where they're having really serious issues, not just homeless people, people creating problems, people don't feel safe. When I actually suggested that there'd be some crossover of a resolution, I kind of got a lot of funny googly eyes. So it's interesting. I'm really happy you're here because we did need some direction about who would really manage that.
And of course, I mean, scaffolding originally, it's there to protect the public when in case something falls off the building, but it's caused all kinds of other concerns. It stays up there.
So I'm just curious because the issues, it seems like at commercial, and I'll look at the presentation, are more about enclosures rather than scaffolding. I don't know what you call them technically, but that things are walled off rather than that there are things overhead. You know what I mean?
And it's one of those sort of weird Department of Buildings things that they had to go to the sidewalk instead of.
But I mean, there's places where things are open above, but it's closed
Right, they
around.
closed it off so that anything that falls off the building won't hit a person. But they have damaged a lot of the planting. You can't
Yeah,
catch
and
water.
the fountains and, yeah.
Right. So, and it's been there for almost a year. So there's lots of finger pointing. I don't think they know exactly who to blame.
And that's only one end of that commercial, like there's a whole nother, like it's on both, there's different projects happening at both ends.
And this, it gets explained in the presentation, but they've had to hold off the parks renovation. Parks Department is doing a renovation. They can't do it because of this piece in the middle. So, yeah, it's a big mess. But it's something that I think all of the current bills that are in front of the city council doesn't really clearly address. And they're working with Keith's office, but I think we could also try and reach out.
Does it make sense to do a joint mezzo?
I don't think it matters. I think if we want to do it here, it'll go to full board and make it faster.
Yeah.
Just because of timing, it has to go.
Well, except I think that we all need to watch the Clark's
Right,
presentation before we can.
yeah, and it is, it's fairly long. But, I'm not sure how time sensitive it is. I don't know. But if there was a resolution written before your next meeting, it could be discussed at the meeting if someone wanted to take them.
Okay, that would be fine.
And she actually created somewhat of a resolution, the woman who's I guess she's
Anne
kind
Hirsch?
of, yeah.
Yeah, she's,
That can be worked from as well, which I
Oh.
think she was gonna send to Neil, I think. I don't know if she did.
she sent it to me as well.
Oh, okay.
I'm in the
So, cause that
process
would be good to see, I think, right,
of-
in the group.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'll distribute. And the other thing we're gonna deal with tonight about staff look is very straightforward. We're gonna look at the sites in our district that have had the scaffolding up the longest. And before we actually, before we discuss it further, we will try to send them a letter next week, each of them, to ask them why the scaffolding's been up that long. Let's see what we can understand, assuming that any of them actually respond to us.
Well, but some of it is just letting them know we're paying attention.
And more of it will be letting them know that we're paying attention once we write a resume on it. I also pointed out a site where the scaffolding has been up for at least a decade and it's not listed
Huh.
on the Department of Building site.
Yes, let me pull it up. I'll pull the street view quickly and then share it on screen so that way
Yeah.
RuPaul can see it from home. But yeah, it's 133 East, no, it's 133 Third Avenue.
Oh, I can add one to it. That's been up for that long.
Where is this exactly?
And that's on
Yeah,
Third
so
Avenue
it's-
between 14th and 15th Street.
Was that far down?
And that has been up forever. The construction has
Oh, yeah.
stopped there. And I looked that up and could not find a listing
Right
for
at the
that.
bus
So,
stop.
one thing that might reveal is that if scaffolding is unpermitted, no one is going around inspecting it and looking for it or checking it out.
Right.
And apparently the permit number is not required to be posted on the scaffold.
Sorry, I don't understand. There's listings for scaffolds?
Yeah,
Yes. There's
Okay.
there's a map.
Yeah, so the
But isn't
Department of
there-
Buildings has this active sidewalk bed map. I should point out that there are more scaffold setups than this. I've
Yeah.
just filtered for the ones that have been up for 5 years or more.
Who's logging all this?
Department of Buildings.
Okay, so they actually, and this is accurate usually, or,
Well,
Well,
not.
I don't know.
okay, that's why my question, yeah, accurate-ish.
It's not, it's not 100%, like it doesn't, like if a permit was renewed super recently, or if a permit was
Okay.
made super recently, it might not yet be reflected on the active sidewalk shed permit map, but, like it's the most accurate thing we have to work with.
Well, and you can find it on open data too, which gives you the initial permit date and renewal dates and stuff like that. But again, it doesn't fill in the details that we want, like why was it renewed, why is it there so long? So if anyone is familiar, knows of any sheds and they want to look them up to see if the shed is actually listed, and if not, then we will also pursue that. So if you know any that have been up for a really long time. So the action plan here is that we'll watch the presentation at Parks. We will send some letters out. And we will look at the resolution that was presented to us. And we will distribute a reso in draft form for the next meeting.
And just Brendan, you mentioned earlier that you get a lot of complaints about scaffolding. Are they pertinent to, are they ones that we should be sending a letter out to?
I would need to look at the individual complaints, like
Yeah,
ones that have been up for like multiple years, and I'm guessing the one Michael Ann is thinking of might be the one I'm thinking of. Near, I think the Republic of Benin.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, like a situation like that. Might be worth sending a letter.
but they don't care.
But we've tried, I mean, they have the Preservation and Design Committee with the Memorial Neighborhood Association, and I worked on it for a little bit, I peeled the onion just a little bit, but when you start to do that, you're kind of going in circles. They do have another office apparently, but I don't think anyone's really just gone right into their establishment and really found out who owns the building. Really, who owns the building?
Does it matter? I think once they have like diplomatic space,
Well, that's the whole thing. It's like,
But I
are they
think
getting
even
carte
if they-
blanche? Why do they have the scaffolding up?
Yeah.
They can't afford it in the first place, unfortunately.
they pay
But
for that.
I mean, it's been up for a decade. It has been up for a decade. And so, and there was a gentleman doing work right beside the building. He said, there's really not much to do. It just, there's little cracks on the rooftop. He kind of wanted the job. I was not the one to hire him. But he said, there's not much to do. I'm up there and I can see. But it seems like it's also an abandoned building now.
Oh,
Just completely abandoned. Like nobody goes in there. So it's a whole mystery, and I think it's something worth us, us to look at as part of.
So we'll pursue that by sending a letter to start with and see if we get any kind of response.
Or if we gotta return to sender or something.
Yeah.
Well,
Maybe we'll see.
we'll look at the PIS to see the ownership. And by the way, there is one, you asked about if the database is accurate. Some buildings have addresses on different streets. So
Right.
the coroner's office, whatever it's called.
in like CME or something like that, like on 30th and First.
Which the borough president, I think, listed as one of the worst.
Yeah,
The worst, I think.
or the
yes,
worst.
I think so.
So the address that he used is not the address in the database, but the address around the corner is, so that's not an inaccuracy. It's, you just have to know when you're looking things up.
Right.
Is there any more on this issue?
Does the scaffolding start losing its structural integrity if
Right.
it's just left unattended for so many years?
I don't think we've ever heard that. In fact, I don't think, we've never heard that, and
And I'm not sure, because it's left there does not mean it's unattended. Because for it to be there, somebody may still,
There's a contractor.
scaffolding is rented essentially. And so, somebody may still,
Yeah, they probably have a record of it.
yeah.
Because they're getting paid, basically.
Go ahead.
Stu, you mentioned that you would be going to be sending letters to state, so you've already identified specific.
well, the
buildings or
website you're looking at right now, lists how the buildings that have the scaffolding the longest, and we can look at the NYC open data, which actually shows dates and sorted by that. So we will just choose the ones that look like they've been up the longest and then send letters there. I mean, we're not gonna send hundreds of letters out, we'll probably send 10 out.
But I think it
Just, yeah, I was
also,
just curious to see like, how many are we, what were the targets? What's the length of time and
Yeah.
how many buildings are we?
And
Gonna be sending
I think
letters.
our initial goal here is to see if we get answers, what reasons they give for why the scaffold's up. Well, I mean, I'd like to hear both sides of the story. Brendan, is making motions. that we would-
I am thinking much of what I want to see. One thing, and this can be a discussion between Stu and I ultimately, but one thing to think about is, like, as I was looking on some of these random dots, I'm noticing at least 2 of them are for city-owned properties.
right,
425 East 25th Street, which is Hunter Brookdale, and 400 East 30th
Oh,
Street,
right.
which is the HRA men's shelter. So one thing to think about is whether we want a strategy specific to buildings on this list that the government itself is responsible.
Yeah,
actually, isn't one of the
absolutely.
bills, isn't there, I feel like I may be conflating two things, but I feel like there's a bill that mentions this and is
Mhm.
sort of designed to address city building, city owned
I don't
buildings.
remember that. In fact, I was gonna suggest to Nad that, they take up this topic that they would mind, which is getting the city to obey its own rules.
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
Oh my God, the cops are the worst traffic offenders, right?
so my question is, are we going down a rabbit hole of looking at this list when it's, might already be provided by Keith? Because he's created this bill, would we not have a bunch of information already? And number 2, forget what number 2, my number 2 is don't forget number 1. Number 2 was about, yeah, like all of these government missions, all that stuff. I had asked that question many months ago to Patrick. He was gonna find out for me. Yeah, are we I know what number 2 was. Are we concentrating on safety for this? Are we accumulating this list for really what is under land use, or what, why are we doing this?
That's a question for Sandy.
Well, to be honest, it's not a land use issue.
Okay, no, but are we talking about 2 separate things here? Because she's talking about a Hammer's board, right? That whole thing, and that sounds like we brought it in, you brought it into safety because our resolution is gonna be in just concentrating on the safety aspect of the scaffolding being up,
Which goes back to Hyder's question.
which is,
There's actually 3, I found there's 3 bills, 3. And
Right.
intro 659 would establish heightened design standards for scaffolding in public parks and playgrounds.
Mhm.
So some of this may just be clarifying what we see as particular issues that need to be added to the bill, but also voicing, please pass this right away. It's really important. Those are the 2
okay.
things that we're trying.
Well, yeah, that's what I would like to know, is like, if we could just, instead of doing all this work, coming up with a resolution, if there's already a great resolution already between Keith, that one, and a couple of other ones, can we just say, like, move this along?
Right,
Right, I think there's 661, 660, and 659, I think are all ones that Keith has participated
16,
in.
okay,
that he's sponsored.
He's sponsoring with Eric Watcher,
okay,
and I forwarded the email to the student.
okay.
What about Mark Levine's efforts on this? Like, this has been a big issue for
I
him.
Probably, if Keith sponsors it, he may be the one that would talk directly to, and then after that, we go to Burke.
Cause I was gonna say, if there are things that are not contained in Keith proposed legislation, but that Mark has talked about previously, maybe that's another,
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean,
not to make it, you know,
we don't know.
kitchen sink.
Yeah, we don't know that it's not, it probably covers,
He's not gonna forget it.
one would hope that there's only one bill that covers all the issues that have been
Yeah.
discussed previously. And then I think, looking at the ones in our district, that's more just, if it's something that affects our community and we wanna deal with, we deal with it.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, unless we complain, there's no.
I mean, but again, and I think there's a little bit about this in the bill, but I know one of the things that, you know, the borough president had really talked about was basically to go back to the incentives. Right now, there's no incentive to take them down. If it's cheaper to keep them up than to pay to get
Yeah.
the work done, right?
Well, that was,
And
yeah.
so change the incentives, like make it expensive for them to keep it up.
Well, that's what Keith Bill is
Yeah.
working on.
I think it's,
So
yeah.
why don't we watch the parks presentation? We will look at the bills that have been proposed. And we will decide if we have one to draft on, and we'll look at the draft that we've received. And by the next meeting, we will be informed and we will decide how to proceed. Oh, and we'll send the letters out. I mean, it's not a duplication of effort. What we're doing is giving these 10 buildings an opportunity to speak to us. And, you know, whatever they say, we'll-
Explain.
if they choose. To. And they may not. Is that a plan?
Yeah.
And so we move on. The now second agenda item is about abating riding of bicycles, mopeds, and scooters on sidewalks. I'm going to frame the issue as I see it. To create a baseline for the discussion, committee members are invited to disagree when they do. So riding on the sidewalk is one dimension of a broader conversation about the increasing disorder on our streets, negative consequence of the otherwise positive advent of micromobility devices. So while there's some data on collisions with micromobility vehicles on the street, there's no data specifically about what happens on the sidewalk. Considering the frequency of sidewalk riding, this dearth of reports of serious injuries suggests that although there's a definite potential for harm, the greater consequence of sidewalk riding so far is that it's scary and menacing for pedestrians. So for the most part, if this riding is just the last 100 feet of a trip, then dismounting and walking rather than riding on the sidewalk would be a very slight inconvenience for the riders. I want to reemphasize that our express purpose is not to punish, but to diminish unwelcome conduct. We're not here to demonize. Many of those who ride on the sidewalk mean no harm and do so politely and safely, but of course, you know, as Madison said, if everyone were an angel, we wouldn't need laws. Motorists, and you know, the context of this is we should remember we all live within a culture. Motorists speed, pedestrians cross against the light or jaywalk, which was illegal until this week. The violations of norms are all really norms, all part of our culture. Bicycling through red lights and on sidewalks is among those behaviors that have been culturally accepted for decades. It's largely the explosive growth of micromobility devices that causes us now to aim to change this culture. So going to the resolution, the first resolve clause asks 311 to streamline the reporting of sidewalk riding complaints and to make them readily mappable. As you might have seen from my email last night, it turns out that board stat actually does show the mapping of complaints pertaining to bike/roller skate chronic. Although I'm not entirely sure what that means. And I'm not sure that 311 knows. So 311 reporting might have to be improved, but the question to the committee is what will it gain?
Yeah.
As we know from the 311 data, police apparently do respond to these 311 reports, but of course, by the time they show up,
Right.
there's nothing to see.
70% of them.
Or more than that. So out of the thousands of reports that we have on the web, in the data, only 5 claim to have had summonses issued. Now, what the 311 service requests might accomplish, though, especially if the reporting is made easier on the website, is where people who are most riled by this conduct are located. And maybe that alone is useful for mitigation purposes. So that's a discussion. The second resolve clause aims to put pressure on businesses who employ these bicyclists by putting the name of the companies in large font on the riders' clothing and perhaps on their bikes. a complication I'm hoping that, Councilmember Menon's office can clear up is that many of these riders are quote independent contractors. So I'm not sure if they can work for both, say Grubhub 1 minute and DoorDash the next minute, which means they'd be changing clothing all the time.
Right,
So
or different restaurants.
exactly,
from one
so
to
we
the
need
other.
to
That was my
learn that
concern.
from
Yeah.
Menon or from whoever can inform us.
Don't they cover it? They cover it though, with like with all commercial, like whoever they're working for. Doesn't matter.
Well, but if they're making multiple deliveries on the same block, we're not gonna have them change their outfit between deliveries.
Or even if they're going, if they're using, like doing a delivery from one restaurant, using one service, once they drop that off, they get another, they're going from another restaurant using another service. Like-
And I believe they can.
Yeah,
And that's why I liked what you sent about the license. We haven't heard that yet. It's all about some signage, but there was one, I think Alex Boras maybe had
So
that.
we'll look at that. Let me just run through all this, and then we'll have an open discussion. Note that the riders might be subject to fines under other laws, but what we're proposing is simply pressure on the businesses to pressure the riders. So, the negative publicity is what we hope will cause some effect without having to work with the city on getting a response, which we don't think we'll get. We've already heard from NYPD last month that we're not likely to see a lot of summonses issued. The third resolve clause asks the city DOT to actually enforce the requirement that the riders wear these outfits with their name on them. That's probably the biggest challenge we'll have to get affected. And that is one of the discussions I hope that we can have with Councilmember Menon's office. The fourth resolve, I believe, actually names the wrong bill, which is probably my fault. I think the bill we meant
I put
to,
that in there as well. I did that.
I think what we meant was the city council intro 715.
715, there's so many of them, I just lost track, like seriously, it's like.
We'll go back.
7744.
But
I'm making it up to
basically,
myself so that way we can make sure to get the correct bill number.
Okay,
but
thanks, Brandon.
basically, 715 holds the building, I'm sorry, the
business?
company who engages these riders responsible for civil penalties, including the fine for riding on the sidewalk. So it's actually the employer or the company that engages these people that suffers the penalty. I'm not clear if I believe, but I'm not clear from the language of the intro, if that includes judgments against the rider for injuring someone, but that's an important question.
Yeah.
I think that you mean as far as who's responsible and who gets fined?
Who pays the fine?
Well, it's been written in many bills that I've been reading that they want to hold the businesses accountable.
Right, and that's what 715 does.
And that's what 715 does as well, and then this other one, 7744 seems to have some of that language in there too.
So we'll look at that. Finally, the fifth resolve seeks to have DOT or DOH collect data on injuries involving these micromobility devices, including injuries to pedestrians. That's similar to Alex Boris's bill, 7628, except instead of relying on police reports on a DMV form, which is what his bill would do, this would seek data from hospitals, and I believe that they also have a reporting requirement. So I am gonna suggest we now have this discussion tonight, but that we wait until the next meeting to vote on the resolution. Menon's office was not able to come tonight. We only learned that yesterday, but they assured us that they will come next month. And since she is chair of the Committee on Consumer and Worker Protection, that could help us shape the resolution and could answer some questions that we don't necessarily have answered. Second, I did invite Boris's office, but way too late, and that's my fault. And it looks like some of his propositions might be of interest to us. So again, we can have him next month as well, or somebody from his office. Third, although I think it's unlikely we can invite DOT, since they're supposedly the ones that will enforce the regulation. I don't know who we'll get, or if we'll get somebody who can speak authoritatively and responsibly, but, I think it would be helpful to have all of these people in. I don't think we will get somebody from 311 in, but we have a very good contact
Yeah.
there. Who has answered my questions in writing, and so if we have more questions, we can pose them to him, but basically. When we talk about reporting on the 311, there's an agency that's basically, this may not be the right language, but the sponsor. So it's not necessarily 311 who says this is where it's gonna be directed. It's that agency that says this is, you know.
It's like the
we'll
designated
take it.
agency.
Exactly. Now, 311 does have some interaction and can reach out to different agencies. And I'm not clear what drives them to do that.
Yeah.
They do not, however, see themselves as an institution that's responsible for creating data for research.
We don't.
So that's not how they look at themselves. Obviously, their data is published and it's apparently one of the most sought
Mhm.
data.
Which is
You
kind
mean
of flabbergasting when you think about it.
People looking for this specific information is one of the most,
For any, no, I just think 311.
oh, yeah.
311 data, is a very common apparently, search and open data, NYC. So their data is looked at, but they don't focus on preventive research. So I think with that, who wants to speak first?
So, yeah, I have a couple of questions, just at a very high level first, before getting into kind of the details of the resolution. At a high level, I had two questions. One is, why are we focusing on traffic violations only on the sidewalk? Rather than all kinds of violations that bicycles, e-bikes may.
I was going to answer, but go for it.
Yeah,
Well, he's got
Can I
the
add
other-
two
he's got
questions?
Two questions. So
Yeah, but-
I can answer that one too, but.
Go ahead.
One question is that, why the focus on the sidewalks versus in general traffic violations of all types in all places, intersections, and you mentioned that being an issue. Second question is, why are we targeting delivery workers rather than anybody who owns a bike that is also violating traffic rules? Those are like my two broad questions about kind of the focus of the resolution.
Thank you, Steve. That is like, especially for that second part. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Because it is not all, it is not always the delivery workers.
Yeah.
Many times it is people wearing a suit who are almost running me over. So
Yeah.
thank you for focusing on that and pointing that out. Thank you.
Yeah, but they're aiming for you.
There's one behind you right now.
So,
She's got, yeah, she's got.
well, I will.
Do you want to answer? or-
I will give you my answer. Now, I'm not the sponsor of the resolution, so you guys are free to, give your own answer. There are several, reasons. First of all, the street may be jurisdiction of transportation. And if that committee wants to handle it, because it's a complex issue, it's not just violations, it's organizing traffic on the street, getting rid of the mess, the disorder that was there. And that is about not just enforcement, but creating an infrastructure and creating rules for using that infrastructure. It, so it involves creating a wider bike path, for instance, segregating the traffic in that bike path. And when you talk about, and then the broader question is really one of enforcement. Enforcement is a real challenge here. And we saw when we talked with the police last month that they're not prepared to issue any, summonses for the sidewalk riding. We have, to enforce this on the street is challenging for a few reasons, one of which is that micromobility rider can get away
Yeah.
pretty quickly. and you do not want to create more
Right.
difficulties
Yeah.
by a pursuit or by somebody running away than we already have. We also have had, as you might have heard, difficulties with police, overreacting or, selectively enforcing rules. And so police now do not enforce a lot of traffic rules, not just against bicyclists, but against motorists. And they're not going to want to. So there's a whole bunch of reasons that enforcement is not the best route to do this. There's also concern, although this may not be a great answer to your question, or at least with the ones I gave, is that, well, you know what, I'm gonna leave it there, and if you two,
I'll chime in.
because you,
No, that's fine.
Decide.
Oh,
Is that okay?
what I was gonna say is that this is such a broad issue. That I think one strategy was breaking this down.
Yeah.
Into smaller
Yeah.
things. Now, the thing is that this is an issue that probably everybody in the city cares about, or,
Mhm.
finds really important. But taking a broad view of it, and it is like, I feel like, I think we thought the resolution might end up just kind of getting lost, because we go on, we say this, about e-bikes, and then it goes forward with the resolution, and nothing ever happens. So this was a more targeted approach. Delivery, I don't know, I kind of see it a little bit differently, but I think with the sidewalks, that's kind of a distinctive part of the whole broader problem. So that's why we focus on that.
Just to follow up on the question, and some of the be it resolved and everything may focus on the delivery, people. But when we are talking about data collection and to make complaints sort of more structured, I think we might miss a big opportunity if we just focus on the sidewalk reporting being enhanced. I think can we sort of expand that one to say that, and it should include other violations by bicyclists or mopeds or whatever, like, going against the flow of traffic, which happens all the time everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. So if we just say, hey, enhance your reporting and make it easier, make it more structured for this specific, the sidewalk violation only, that's too narrow. I think, we would all benefit if we have the right amount of data to see the quantification of, what other violations are being committed.
but how are we collecting that data?
Yeah.
Well, you're thinking of taking the 311 route, right?
Well, that's what we're
Well, we'd
talking
like-
about.
Agreed,
yeah.
but what I'm saying is not just make it easier to collect the sidewalk data, but sidewalk data for violations, but all, bicycle, mopeds violations.
Mhm.
And
Complaints.
so first of all, I don't think I distributed this to everyone. Yes, I did mention it. There is a person on 14th Street who posted on Reddit
Oh my
that
God,
he set up a
Yeah.
camera.
That was incredible. You should watch that video. Like,
That's
it's 3 hours long,
crazy.
but it's.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm not. Oh.
Um,
You
You know,
watched it for 3 hours?
It's, you
Video
zoomed
is
through
3
it.
hours.
He's got.
Listen to
things
the
do.
words he said,
Yeah, I don't have a job.
So the question.
I spent 3 hours watching that.
I don't have a life.
I don't have one.
I needed something
Yeah.
besides thinking about the election.
Yeah, so if I may, I brought this to the attention of the committee right away. Since I wanted to be on TV, so, there's a real problem with sidewalk safety. And that's why it's addressed as sidewalk safety, because what we're noticing is that in all of these resolutions that are the litany of bills that are trying to be passed, there's no real focus on the sidewalk, and they're barely mentioned that there's a problem with sidewalk safety. So we had the officer on, he came on, we peeled that onion, we understood, oh, there's absolutely, he confirmed that there's no reporting. But just a second, let me finish. So I think what we're trying to do is, like we talked about, do a micro focus get that in. Now, my question is, and has been since I started reading all these bills, because I'm not used to doing these resolutions, is like, well, we see this resolution, can't we just tell them to like insert it into their bill? Like, why shouldn't it include sidewalks too in this reporting? And we don't see, there's no one mentioning this 311 reporting. And no one's mentioning, which I just kind of inserted the other day, based on the video that I sent around to you guys of the doctor reporting. And I was thinking about that way back, that maybe that's an avenue to get these reports from the hospitals if we're not able to get reports from 311. But it's at an all-time high. People are feeling really, really paranoid. We already know that. And then to answer just one more, just a second, and to answer the second part of your question about,
Delivery workers.
delivery work, not just delivery, I think it does merit to add in, maybe, that's up for discussion, all
Adult
inclusive of
riders.
all people that violate. I really think at the end of the day, I put a note, put it in there, is like, there should be zero tolerance for driving on a sidewalk.
Well, let me, before Ann speaks, because she just.
He is biting at the bit.
Yeah. One reason to focus on commercial riders is because we can put pressure
Right.
on the companies that engage them. And we can force them to wear the name on the back of their clothing. And there is a department.
I'm not sure that I agree with that. We can get into that discussion.
Well, we can do, it's easier to enforce that than it is for an individual rider.
But what,
Depends on
That's your-
I mean, it depends on the enforcement mechanism.
but that goes back to the question of
Yeah.
enforcement.
Yeah.
And
That's why I think-
if we don't have an officer on the sidewalk who's enforcing
Yeah,
it,
and they're not gonna do it.
then it's not, we can pass a resolution and get nothing from it. So Ann, what were you gonna say?
So I would say, I took something very different away. I feel like you said two things right in a row. I strongly agree with one of them. I strongly disagree with the other. And you said, we know this is a bigger problem than ever. And I would argue that we don't. And I think that's what the captain said. I think we all feel like there is a gut.
How do we don't know
No,
that?
no, I think there is, no, because again, that's why we want the reporting.
Right,
Because our gut says.
That's right, yeah.
This is a big
Yeah.
problem, but we don't actually know how big a problem it is. Because we don't actually have reporting on that. And from one of the things I could see in the bill, in one of the bills you sent around, it's like, it's, if there's an injury or fatality, that is not required to
Yeah.
be.
yeah.
And that has, I mean, I don't think that has anything to do with whether it is an electronic, an e-bike or whatever, or just like, you could do some serious damage.
Yeah.
With
Anybody.
with any bike, right? Like if it's got enough weight behind it and you hit, little old lady, like that can be super ugly. I completely agree, though, that there is a perception. But I think it's really important for us as a committee to distinguish between an actual problem and the concerns about a problem.
And I think that's why we're doing with the angle of. the
Exactly,
311.
that's why we're
Yeah, you got it.
looking,
So I
that's
see
why
what
the
you're saying.
data angle
As far
is
as
so
like
important.
curbing it and setting it up for success and.
But I mean, I think if you put in Reza, this is a bigger problem than ever. If
Yeah.
you're just gonna say like, okay, like point me to the data, that
Mhm.
like that's the devil's
Yeah.
advocate in me is gonna say that.
I mean, you
I
don't have
think
to
it's
call
in-
it the biggest problem
No,
ever,
we
but
don't.
it is a problem.
It's not in there. I mean, we
It is
just,
clearly-
the way we set it up, I think.
There
it's in
wasn't
there. It's
one
nice to
thing we
set.
sent talking about the anxiety and
The anxiety,
anxiousness.
Yes, and
people
I
are
think
feeling.
that's
yeah.
And that
100%
is real, because
fair.
I'm feeling it and I could beat up so, oh my God. I forgot this stuff's being recorded. I'm tough and strong
Right.
and like, it shouldn't bother me, but I'm seeing this weaving in between people and it is not, we should just be able to walk.
Well, and jaywalking is not gonna be
I'm not-
illegal, right? So.
It's a different topic.
February.
Sidewalks are very small spaces. Right? And you've got restaurants on sidewalks, you've got other people, you've got lots of things happening on small sidewalks.
So do we wanna just focus on sidewalks?
I think that's what we're,
That's for just biting off.
But I think
Yeah,
for
a chunk
now,
of it.
right, then we could look
Yeah.
at other,
and,
there are other
remember, it
issues.
is a cultural issue.
Yeah, sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
what we're talking about is not whether it's legal or not, but whether, and not even whether it's enforced or not, but we're talking about this is a cultural issue. If you start to get if it's possible to get a hold on what's going on the sidewalk, then it starts to bleed, if you'll excuse the expression, into other cultural behavior.
Sure.
So, if it's clear that this is, and, if we do, for instance, get larger prints and enforce the rule that commercial cyclists have the name on the back of their, outfit, then it's not just the sidewalk. I mean, you see that when they're on the street running against traffic or weaving in and out or anything else that you feel, or running a light or something. So, we focus narrow, but I recognize that the impact can be greater.
That's why I wonder if we should put something in there though with, about the license. Well, it's already in one of these resolutions, I guess, about
The
the
plates,
license, like a license plate.
I think that's critical. That's probably
Yeah.
the most enforceable element.
Yeah,
I talked to Keith about this. And he had something going through and then I went back to them and nobody was pushing it through. Everyone was backtracking on it.
yeah.
He really wanted the licensing bill. Well, first off, it raises money for the city.
Yeah.
Second off, you can track something, otherwise you really can't. And he really wanted to do that and it's not getting traction.
Did you get a sense of why?
Just pushback, there's not enough of a coalition of people that are pushing it forward, according to them.
I would have some problem with licensing, what we learned last month is called acoustic bikes. Oh, wait, different committee, acoustic bikes. Acoustic bikes are as opposed to electric.
Oh my God, are you joking?
I had to look that up.
Like a guitar, right?
I had to look that up, but yes, the term is actually in use.
Oh my God, that is the
Um,
thing I've heard.
Nonetheless,
Tuesday.
one of the bills that we saw requires registration of mopeds, at the point of sale. So I think,
Yeah, Alex would
once
have- yeah.
again, let's start, you need a starting point, start with the most serious, and the most enforceable. I mean, that law is already there. Mopeds are supposed to be registered and they're supposed to have license plates. So let's get them, taken care of, and that's a
Yeah.
bill. That we can look at.
Going back to Anne's point about kind of the data, we know that there's a lack of data,
Right.
but if we're gonna put something in the resolution that is like, this is what we believe, we need to have something that backs it up, other than just saying it's our feeling that this is. And whether that's,
What do you mean
There-
about the data, like about taking the data or?
no, I'm saying like the hypothesis is this is a safety issue, driving on the sidewalks, and it's a big issue. But where you need some evidence to back that up.
Is there,
Well,
In the
there's nothing in the reso that says, anything about the frequency of the conduct, right?
The frequency,
Mm.
well, I mean, if you, like, a couple of drafts ago, I started quoting. Various people that have said things at meetings, i.e. Robert said something at the community meeting with the Mariel Neighbor Association, and the number one thing that he mentioned, that's the whole community complains about, the number one complaint they get is riding on the sidewalks.
But again, like, that's
So-
anecdata.
Okay, but I'm just saying, like, if there's
Right, we can
something to.
express
So,
I mean,
a,
that's better than nothing, so
right, and we can
that, I think
say, we can
And
say
it's good to put in if we have something that.
community
right,
members and groups have expressed concerns that they
Yeah.
get many complaints.
And name them.
Sure, I mean.
Right.
So that we have some,
Top,
Right,
we have some backing to this. It's
Mhm,
not just we made it up one day. I was walking and I decided this was
Yeah.
an issue and it's one person who said this. You know, we want to have some meat behind.
So that really should be in there.
Instead of it's just my
Yeah.
perception, it's how I feel. This is what I think. Yeah, agreed.
yeah, exactly.
The more, so I'm just saying, the more that we can pull in whatever information we have to substantiate that point,
Well,
the stronger the resolution.
And the other is the lieutenant coming on and point blank telling us, they do not spend, they don't have the resources to follow through on the cameras that can actually see all of this action happening, as per the email that you sent me, oh my God. Of all of these people riding on the sidewalk, they don't have the
Yeah, well,
resources to do that, and they're not going to do it, it's not their priority.
News to me.
So
I'm
we know that too.
sorry, I'm here though, why we, I mean, I understand that it's always helpful to say, well, this is a huge problem because this is the number. We don't have the numbers, we didn't put that in the resolution, I don't know that there's any need to do that. If
Yeah.
we don't have the numbers, it's better to just allow everyone to understand what they see with their own eyes.
but I think it is fair to include, say, we have received, community groups have expressed their concern, because it also just shows that we are responding to community concerns.
It
and
does,
Well,
and-
yeah.
That's a value in itself.
And that is telling the number of complaints we've received. That doesn't tell you the actual incidence of this
Correct,
kind of
yeah.
conduct.
That's
Which is
saying
why we're
perception,
asking
it's
for
already about the
3-1.
perception.
Better reporting or a reporting, like a link, a direct link for you to be able to report. Someone just hit someone or they ran over me, whatever it is, we're asking for that but there is no link to do that.
And I should just point out that one of the problems that we have with 311 is that they need to respect privacy
Right.
Yes.
concerns.
Yeah.
And so there's a field of information apparently where you write subjectively what happened.
Mhm.
311 is concerned that people will be putting personal data in those fields. And therefore, they're not releasing that to us. So the specific of the complaint is not available to us.
Yeah.
And that's reasonable, I
That's
think.
reasonable.
Well, it's,
I mean, because for them to
But-
mask that
Mhm.
data before. I mean, I'm one of those people, like, there is no privacy, whatever, like, get over it. But I understand, like, you don't wanna, if somebody,
I understand,
Yeah.
but, if we filed a FOIL request, for instance, we could force them to redact that information. And there's some ways that we've talked about. So some of the information is a result not of, filing online where people enter the data themselves, but making phone calls with a 311 operator into the data. I think we can presume that data
Mhm.
probably doesn't contain private information. So we're looking at,
why would you assume that a 311 call would not?
because the
include
311
personal data?
operator should know not to put, persons.
No, if you call 311 to make a report about anything,
There are dedicated fields to entering name, address, phone number.
correct, and you are not required to do it, but if you want follow-up.
Right, but that's
No,
not the
you're
field that we're looking to get. The field we're looking to get is a free text field where the information is subjectively entered about, this is what happened.
Just at least, yeah, just some kind of incident, but all this, what you said, I'm just like, oh my God, this whole beta. NYC thing, is it true? Like, is this really funneling through the police department?
It is appointed to the police department. That's who's supposed to get it. And you can see that we get status. The police
Mhm.
department does reply with these statuses or stati.
Stata, I think, right?
I mean,
So, do they actually visit the site or do they just file this because they presume that by the time they get the report?
well, and also, like, we have this in there before too, is that we know that just like on the street. You know, one of the other reasons is they just, even if they were to go to the site where someone.
Right.
It's just, they can't, there's no
Gone.
evidence.
Yeah.
Yeah. no
And,
evidence.
and you know what, cops are way overworked, are
They are.
experiencing higher planned retirements than like any time in the last 30 years or whatever, something I heard on WNYC. And so, I mean, I think we do have to be cognizant about what else we're adding to their load.
Yeah,
Especially when you look at the priorities of where they should be prioritizing their time. No offense, but really. So I think
can
that
we-
the question is, because
Yeah.
we wanna, I really, I think what you're saying is so valid that if we have even communities that have spoken up, I think it needs to be in there. It makes it stronger. Okay, even if we don't have data, we can just say.
Yeah, it's a community concern.
Community concerns, and maybe if we can have, we know of any specific, information, just who the communities are that are talking about it, I don't know. Yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah.
You
So,
make perfect
Brenda,
sense.
Or even just do a quick next door survey or something, and say like,
I mean, like,
to
yeah, well,
have something in.
No,
Yeah.
I wrongly oppose the idea of a next door survey.
I'm just throwing out an idea of like,
next door, they're wacko.
I'm just saying like, things that you can do something to create information.
Yeah.
That obviously we
Well,
don't have.
It's
the
crazy on
information,
there.
Has some.
And I will also say, can I just put in a plug for Manhattan, the borough president, when they do their trainings, the open data trainings are awesome. Like,
I did that training.
yeah, I mean, I've taken
And I had
it
no clue.
a couple of times. There's
Very good.
so much out
I
there,
can't believe it. It's
Yeah.
fantastic.
right? So just saying.
But then so the other part of this is like, well, let's get to the enforcement discussion, because I think that also brings into like, how, like, what does enforcement look like? And then how do we?
Well, it's kind of following what's already there in all of these bills, and we come to the conclusion because we know the police aren't gonna do it. And it is going after the nut, and that's the Uber. We know there's incentivization with these companies to hurry up and deliver, and that's why they're taking shortcuts, going faster, blah, 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 blah. So there's that, and I don't know. I mean, should we add that in there again?
So should
Should
we
we
add
add that back in there?
the,
about the
about the
incentivization?
pressure and the shortcut?
Right. I mean, we know that already. All of this is already in some of the other bills, and that's why we wanted to enforce one of those bills.
So I mean, I think my view, when you look at these resolutions, is what effect they will have and what you need to increase that impact. I personally don't see a need to put these sort of anecdotal statistics or numbers of complaints that we've gotten in this, but if you all collectively think we should, then we can ask, how many complaints we get here in the office, for instance, about sidewalk riding. But it risks confounding things. So we know the 311 data, we know this one person filed 1,800 reports. We know that the data is skewed based not on how often something happens, but how often somebody complains about it. We know that there are some challenges to filing the complaint, so many people who might have filed it won't file it. So entering information I don't think is necessary is probably not advisable. I mean, we've already got legislators who are interested in this issue. They get complaints at their own offices. There's, I think, a degree to which we can all simply say it's such common knowledge. You can see it. It happens with some frequency. We don't know what it is. So I personally would not put in. I don't see the benefit of putting this in unless we had real numbers. But that's just my opinion.
if we do find out that a rider is not, a delivery person is not dedicated to one delivery service, could be operating for Seamless, Grubhub, Uber Eats at the same time, just depending on the sort of app they pick up. Does this become moot in terms of the proposed?
I think what we want to hear from Menon's committee actually is if there's a strategy. So perhaps.
The data still is relevant, data collection is still relevant, but the 3-digit identification number and the,
Right, and the question is, can there be a unique number for each rider as opposed to a unique number for the combination of company and rider?
Right.
You know, how would we do it then? The pressure is diminished if the company name is not on the clothing. I just don't know, though, if it's frequent that person will pick up from both, you know, 2 or 3 different services on the same day, and I just have no idea.
even Uber drivers are not unique.
Right, right, they can go
Uber, they
Uber
can
to
go
Lyft
Lyft.
and, yeah,
all they need to do is just.
they
put
might
their
on
thing.
the same shift
Yeah.
even.
I
Yeah,
mean, I think too, going back to kind of what you alluded to, Stuart, is like. These bills are already in the works. They've already done all the data homework. They know there's an issue, like, you know, Alex knows, he's there, he knows there's an issue. And I think like this is, I'm totally I'm so in hopes that, because I don't know exactly the way resolutions work, but. And, you know, at one point I was going, should we just throw this in the can, because there's all these bills already out there, but to your point, it's like, they haven't honed in on this particular, it seems to be missing this concentration on the sidewalks and pedestrian right of way. And we don't hear that in these resolutions, and hopefully they will pick it up and put it in those other resolutions somewhere.
But I think what we're getting at is that, I mean, we discussed it here, but there is no way to enforce it. That is the problem.
right.
And that is, if you
Enforcement
can't
is not-
enforce it, then it's kind of pointless to.
Well, they have got like, they're talking about the same thing we're talking about. We're talking about hold these companies accountable or hold the businesses
Yeah.
accountable.
I have
So-
a very big problem with targeting delivery people under this.
Well,
bill.
it doesn't-
It's-
so then
it
we
would
have a
need to be
chance.
for me to
Right?
support this
I
resolution.
agree with,
It would
I
need
agree.
to it would need to apply to everyone.
Yeah.
That owns a
So-
bike and is riding their
Yeah.
bike.
So I think this
But could
is
it
an
just be the sidewalk
opportunity.
then? Or-
Could just be the
Yeah.
sidewalk. I'm
Yeah.
okay with that, but
Yeah.
it,
But
and
not
so
everybody.
how do you enforce
Not
individuals
minors.
riding on this sidewalk who do not correspond to
Well, first of
Uber?
all, it's against the law to ride on the sidewalk. So
Right.
we are not enforcing it.
Right,
And it's
but,
like zero tolerance
Yes,
for
and the
anybody.
ducks too.
but,
Or-
so
So
what
it's
is the
great.
mechanism by which we are going to?
I give so
enforce
much more leeway on all infractions when it's someone delivering food. I have to tell you right now, this is
Yeah.
me, it's my bias. It is, because what are they making, you know, they're trying to make a living. So I think we do have to be a little careful of this, and I think that's why we decided the companies would be, but there's also fear that the company is gonna put this
Right.
on the
It's-
rider.
I think
And
it's-
I mean, and like you
It's a
see
really
other
difficult situation.
people, like they are not the only people you see riding on the sidewalk.
No,
That's delivery
no.
people.
Maybe we
Or
really
riding
have
the
to
wrong
keep
way.
everyone.
Or, you know,
I mean, it seems like there's so many bills of people wanting to put the onus on the business now.
That is true.
And
I mean,
so
some of the,
it's already in there. Let them do it. Maybe, I don't know, do we reiterate it? Just concentrate on this, like, just the fact that we're bringing up the subject of sidewalk safety. As opposed to street safety, because they keep talking about street safety and they've got it covered, but it's not, they're not talking about pedestrian safety.
I think once again, you're looking at the domino effect. That's the I'm sure there's a better way to phrase it, but if we can control it for commercial riders, then it begins to change the culture for everyone else. But the first goal.
I don't agree with that.
Okay, the first goal is to do what we can do. So if we can do it for commercial riders, but we can't do it for anyone else, then I don't think it's unfair to enforce it against commercial riders.
I think it's unfair, and in fact, I think it's inappropriate to say just because we can do it for one group that we then have to. And we're not gonna apply
That
equal.
targets a specific group. It targets
What if we?
people who are the
only do it
delivery
for
drivers.
particular
It doesn't just do it, it specifically targets them.
Made it easy.
Right.
That's not a good reason for being able to put forward.
Yeah.
So wait, what's your concern with that?
So-
Is your concern that,
Inclusive.
sorry?
I think to be inclusive.
Oh, well, I guess, so my question
But
is,
the law applies equally. We don't say the police
okay,
can only target people who sell crack cocaine versus those who sell
Mhm.
Wall Street type
Okay,
of cocaine, you know, so like, just because it's easier, right, to track one versus the other, you know? That's a good example of a policy that was,
Sure.
if you're
Terrible,
looking for
right?
equitability,
So-
then you've created a much more complex issue. Because we also know that motorists kill a lot more people and injure a lot more people per mile, per motorist, whatever you want to measure, than bicyclists do, than scooters do, than these commercial. So if you're looking for equitability, now you've created a much greater challenge, because now we also have to enforce the rules against motorists.
But we're talking about sidewalks only, right?
Yeah, we're talking about sidewalks.
Right, but I'm just saying, if we're worried about what's equitable generally, whether it's sidewalks and bicyclists on sidewalks, or, you know, why are you enforcing a rule against, if you, and remember, these are not suspect categories, these are not race, these are not ethnicity, these are not gender.
but it's a proxy. right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's the
I-
difficulty behind this. Who's working as delivery riders?
is that,
It's
can I-
people of
is that
low
your-
income.
But,
migrant
but,
workers.
but.
I mean, and I
So-
think we got there because there is both a perception that whether the misbehavior is greater among whatever, cyclists, or just that there are so many more of them. Or like, that's one issue. And the other issue is, like you were saying, it's like way easier to say, like, okay, you can't even make people wear helmets, you know, like.
They're also very
like-
visible.
they are more
Because
visible.
they have the-
Literally more
yeah.
visible. And it's like, well, it's really easy to say, like, oh, we can put pressure on businesses, but it's really hard to see how you. So, I mean, I think what you're saying is 100% right, and it is, you know, first they came for the delivery riders, right? But then, you know, it's like, okay, so how do you achieve the public safety goal of having people behave correctly?
And
I have a
try-
problem with the-
I'm sorry, but try another angle. All of these bills are putting the employer or the company financially liable for the rider, which is not what you would do with an individual. Now, the individual rider could also be penalized directly in some cases, but these bills actually say if the rider's working for this company and gets summoned, the company pays for it. So you've already got a distinction that actually protects them rather than penalizes them more than.
Could we go the deterrence route? That if we are starting with data collection, that the enforcement could be, you know, notification to the businesses that your riders are violating sidewalk safety, right? It's soft, but I mean, that's kind of enforceable because there's no penalty, but it's a messaging to the businesses. I
Right,
don't know, I mean, if it's gonna be effective at all.
it's like sending the letters.
but
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 the
it's-
same
but
driver
it's-
is gonna be delivering for multiple services. So how are you gonna specify which delivery app they were using at that specific time, right? We already discussed. Each specific driver can switch between Uber and Grubhub and DoorDash or whatever it is, right? So how are you gonna pick which of those delivery services is getting targeted, saying your driver, when those drivers are with every
Okay.
company?
It's kind of like a good neighbor,
That's what-
promotion.
That's why they're doing
Meaning- Some,
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm
Yeah.
kind of into the marketing
Yeah, I like
aspect
the
of
good
how you
neighbor
get
one.
people to get along.
yeah,
And that is like to really do something with the businesses that employ these riders, like even just the businesses on the street.
Yeah.
And you create this thing of like, we support safe riders and just trying to change the language and feeling people are getting, and I think you're right. Cause I do worry, cause I know that if a guy gets reported or a girl gets reported a few times, they're gonna fire him or something.
Yeah, that's the, that's.
So if we move
They're not
away,
gonna take that's the fear though, the business won't what business actually
gonna-
takes responsibility for anything?
who's gonna enforce it?
Yeah, yeah, I
First
don't
of
know.
all, there's no necessary, if there's no fine issue, that people just call the company and say, you know, we're
Right.
really upset about this. Then the pressure's on the company to press the rider to not ride that way. But I'd like to hear, Steve, what is your proposition then? If you want to see this equally, imposed on everyone, given that we're not going to get police enforcement, what's your proposition?
No, this isn't my resolution. I'm just saying I can't support it
Oh, it's
the
all.
way it's. So, I mean,
Yeah, but like, what would you, do you have a
I
suggestion?
don't know, because I don't know how you would enforce it, but my only solution would be you need someone on the street to actually stop people.
Well,
And you
that's,
need that kind of enforcement to be done for everyone who's riding on the sidewalk.
it's not
And-
that we've gone down that path and it's.
And
And
that
you
is- I
feel,
don't- I
and
don't
you
know.
feel it is completely unjust to target commercial
Yes,
riders.
I do. It's just, it's bad policy to target one group.
I'm with Steve.
I think it goes back to,
Okay,
The
hold
data.
on one second, let
Okay.
Hal, who's,
No, I just want to say I agree with everything he just said. I think it's unfair to target that specific group. And just an extra point, right? These people are living paycheck to paycheck, right? So they know that if they do something wrong, that if they hit somebody, it's literally their paycheck. They're not gonna make their next rent. They're
is-
not gonna have food on the table.
Okay.
that's.
But they also shouldn't be illegal, doing something illegal.
yeah, but I don't know whether that should be a consideration for making policy. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, they should be doing something illegal
We should be
by,
talking about violations and how to stop violation, not,
No, it's,
You know,
for me,
whether-
it's more about the equality of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
okay, yeah.
like, the more times I've crossed the street and been run over by somebody, it's definitely not a delivery person. It's
Yeah.
just someone riding.
No,
Riding their bike.
there's.
But they
bad
are very
riders.
visible.
Commuting, yeah.
There's a little bit
Yeah.
of.
More comfortable, more careful.
They're not delivery, they're regular people.
no,
Regular
no crosstalk, please. Justin,
I was just gonna say, one factor, I think the reason this even came up was, besides the business pressure aspect, is that they're very visible. I mean, I'll tell you, I live
Yeah.
on Park Avenue, and they, you'll get like 12 guys at 8 o'clock at night, or like right when, during the summer, the sun's going down, and they're all coming in. And so, yes, it's true. And I'm still like, I'm not sure how I would vote or how I feel about it, but to play, to understand this a little bit more, it's difficult because they're the ones that are very visible, and theoretically that might be a way to shut something down as a starting point. But I don't know, that's also if we want to be strategic about that.
let me ask you
I mean-
how you feel about the specific targeting of medallion taxi drivers who are subject to stricter regulation by the TLC for the same violations. that
You
other-
mean versus
Versus what?
non-TLC plates or versus
Every other
black cars?
driver.
No, because it's not the same.
Go ahead, explain.
Well, I mean, that's why I'm asking, like, TLC is responsible for enforcing rules by cars that have TLC plates. And it's not just yellow cabs. It's not just
Okay,
medallions.
we can expand that to all.
Okay, but I think that is different because we're talking about whoever this enforcement is, whoever we think is gonna do this enforcement, we are asking them to, like, the NYPD is not supposed to just target, they're not supposed to just target anyone. like, and it's something certainly that.
I don't know that that's actually true, but go on.
Well,
The
there have been
individual
many,
officers
many
have
lawsuits.
discretion.
Yes, and that's why there have been so many lawsuits and why, you know, the NYPD has been under, you know, like Justice Department review. But when you, like, TLC is responsible for enforcing laws. Like, they can't pull over just anybody. They are enforcing.
Exactly.
Right, but that's what their mission is. That's not what, like, NYPD's mission, it's not to target.
No, but we're
deliver, but
talking,
we don't, there is no agency that says,
yes,
we're just gonna do delivery.
but there is. The DOT is responsible for regulating, for the clothing that these folk wear.
But aren't they responsible for everybody riding a bicycle?
No, they're not, the DOT is specifically responsible for enforcing rules pertaining to commercial bicyclists, that they wear certain outfits, that they wear a helmet, that they take a certain training
But
program.
we're not asking DOT to enforce this, we're asking NYPD.
No, we're
No,
talking
we're
about
asking
DOT in this case.
And maybe the consumer
But who's got,
protection.
like DOT is gonna be
Well,
driving around?
no,
like, doing
no,
this?
no, what we're
no,
talking about though is at the dispatch point. At least you make sure that these people are wearing the clothing that they're supposed to wear. And then it's also possible to report.
Well, I mean, if you look at these bills that are written, it's like, again, I'm flabbergasted. It's like, who's gonna do it? And that's why I asked a couple of, in the two other meetings, Department of Sanitation is gonna be hiring, or they're gonna have their own special crew that's gonna give out fines if you don't put out the garbage right, and you violate a couple of times. And then with the batteries, they're going to be, they have their own special task force that's gonna do that within the Department of DOT or NYPD as well. That's going to just give out fines for the bad batteries. So, but I was gonna go back and say, I mean, I don't know how to say this, like, they're delivery people. And are we really targeting, like, okay, is it a cultural thing? Because they're not just immigrants that ride the bikes, they're all kinds of people. They are all kinds of people. And it just so happens that that's a majority of the people. It's about the issue, not about the culture of the person. And, you know, it's about the actual riding on the sidewalk and doing something unlawful and pedestrian safety. That's what it's about. So if we could kind of.
No, it's about perception.
Well, if
Of
we could
pedestrian
perception, we could do
safety, really.
perception all day long about, you know, silos of people that take different jobs, McDonald's. I mean, you know, so what are we gonna do? It's like, you gotta try and pass something that has something, you know, like a sidewalk safety program. It's about the sidewalk safety program. It's not about the people. It's not about those people. It's whomever is riding on those sidewalks the wrong way, then there should be some kind of enforcement. We're trying to get to who's gonna do that. If there's a task force, I would bet, my very first thought was with two officers, I said, can't you just have somebody on one end of the block and the other end of the block? I said, because certainly on the sidewalk, you could grab them, hold on, you know.
Just do
Much
this.
faster. And they're like, no, you're just barking up the wrong tree. We're not gonna do that.
Justin,
So I actually want to provide some context. Were you here at our last meeting? Oh, okay, I wasn't sure. So yeah, because we had a police officer that's kind of how the conversation happened and the resolution even got built out, was we had a police officer and they were talking about the delivery drivers from my memory, right? Or was it all?
Well, he was talking about them, but congregating on the sidewalk.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
why this is where it originated from. So.
I don't know how this is informed. I have to tell you, the more we look at this,
Right,
when
that's
I
crazy.
walk on the streets, the more I think this chaos will remain. And there's nothing anyone can do, all other than what you're talking about, Stu, which is this is cultural, like how do you shift the culture around this?
Run for
Hmm?
city council.
Well, you know, but actually, I mean, I remember when, like a decade ago, and we were starting to put bike lanes in, and bikes were, you know, like lots more people were riding bikes. And I had come across some research, which I will probably never be able to find my way back to. And it kind of said like that the more people using a mode of transit, the more a greater percentage of them will be law abiding. And that kind of improves it for everybody. And I think that's true. I mean, there's still like a ton of people that ride the wrong way, or like on Second Avenue, there's a protected bike lane, but people still use the bus lane, you know?
Yeah.
And like, I get it, as somebody who rides bikes myself, I get that. But I do think that research that I read has been borne out. So I think that like, it's more about how do you create the norm?
Yeah.
And whether you do that enforcement or whether it's by
Incentive.
in some positive
Actually,
incentive. I agree with you. I don't know, like, I don't know the
The more I
answer.
look at it, the harder it becomes for me to
Are
understand
we at
how
a
to do
point
it.
where we need to hear from others?
Well, yeah, and I think you're setting things
Alex
up.
or
Yeah,
DOT, yes.
I was gonna suggest, can we get somebody is there like a bikers, bicyclists?
Transall.
Coalition in the
Transall,
city
I
who
would
like
say.
has a lot of bikers and could come and bring their perspective to say like, oh,
What do you
this
think?
is the issue or not the
Justin?
And
issue.
even building
Friendly
the
bike
relationship is a
I'm sorry?
really good idea.
Transportation
I wrote this down on
alternatives.
LinkedIn.
What's your question?
President of the. Friendly
Whether
Bike
they
One,
would
one
be
person at a
good to
time,
hear
Annie's
I love
asking
that.
if TA, Transportation Alternatives, would be a good representative, and I would say not. Because as far as I know, membership in TA is probably not. And it's probably not commercial bicycles for the most part. TA.
No, but that's my point. I don't wanna just hear from the commercial bicyclists. I wanna hear from, because we were trying to figure out how do we get everyone to abide by the rules.
It'd be great to hear from one too, though, anyway, a commercial
And if
bicyclist.
this is something that's probably they've talked about or maybe thought about.
Maybe they.
I
bought
would say
some-
have.
I wonder if there's a group that represents mostly food vendors or other kinds of street vendors. And I cannot think of their name, but they're pretty big. Do you have any idea who I'm talking about?
Street vendor project?
Yes,
Sounds
well,
familiar.
I think that sounds right. I wonder if they might have insight. I know it's a little orthogonal to that. But I just wonder.
But we can make the input. I think it's certainly fair to see if there's somebody who can represent these individuals.
I was gonna say, can we make a motion to table to get, to get representatives from various biking communities?
You don't need a motion.
You don't need a motion for
You
that?
can
You
just
You
say,
all can we can just do it.
just do it? Okay.
Just do it.
And I would like some of these riders that work for apps.
Yeah.
Well, because, not that this is maybe relevant, but I was just in the Serengeti and they're moving the Maasai out because they're trying to protect the animals. And I'm like, can't we come
Damn.
up with a way that everyone has ownership in this and solves it together? And that creates a much better environment. And I think I'm sorry, you're gonna hate me. You're gonna hate me because I'm moving. I don't think we know enough.
I wonder, I mean,
No, I
it
thought about
probably
knowing.
isn't the street vendor project, but I wonder if they know who might be, like, it just might be somebody that's in their orbit.
would you be interested in getting somebody from one of the or two of the apps here?
No,
Not
No, I
I
would like
think
the
they-
riders. I'll just stop a couple riders on the street and say, well, you come talk to us at our next committee meeting, and they're all over the place.
so one of the things that I thought about, one of the things that made me think about transportation alternatives, and this goes back to your thought, is that one of the things I used to do was transportation alternatives had this little booklet that's was like, here are the rules of the road.
They're not reading
for
this stuff,
cyclists.
they are
No,
not.
but I would get a bunch of them and I
Mm.
handed them out, and some people absolutely were, or at least they said the right things. But, I mean, I wonder if there isn't, again, I'm just thinking about what's a different way to, like, because enforcement seems,
And
I don't know.
TA used to have a program called Give Respect, Get Respect.
yeah,
At the same time that they had this program, and this actually led to why I resigned, the president at the time of TA was saying, you know, it's cool to ride against traffic, you just have to be polite.
Oh, my
Um,
goodness.
And that created a little friction.
Yeah.
that is.
It's a little hypocritical.
But TA, the advocates at the time at TA said, you don't know how horrible it is for people to say it's okay to blow through lights. So there was some interest there, but I'm not sure that TA is going to be, I'm glad to invite them. And see what their perspective is. I might have a phone conversation with them first and see if it looks like they have anything to contribute. And, you know, we can take it from there and see if we'll invite them to the next
I
meeting.
mean, maybe Alex and all the rest of them have already gone down this path. You know, of bringing people in, talking to them, all that kind of thing. And, you know, maybe we should add, and then I guess having the conversation with men and boards have that representative here, just to ask them like, you know, we want to cover sidewalk safety. The point blank, the only reason I brought this up is because it's not in their bills.
Right,
The
Yeah,
sidewalk
they say
safety is
that.
not in the
Alex
bills.
said that at the last meeting when I asked him about it. He goes, oh, that's something we should look at. No, it's
Yeah.
not in there. It's true.
Well,
So-
that's at full
Maybe
board,
just
right?
the ask, maybe
Yeah,
just say,
full board.
can you please put in sidewalk safety? Can all of this include sidewalk safety?
So let me just point out, as I have before, that one of the benefits of being on a community board and not the legislature
Yeah,
is because we're appointed
okay.
and we don't have to respond to the electorate.
I'm
So,
sorry.
so a legislator might sponsor and vote
Right.
for a bill that looks really hot, that has no effect, has
Okay.
no impact. Our goal is to actually have an impact, and,
Well, I think the 311 reporting and there's some kind of reporting on, see, we're always going back to the data, and the data could actually say, okay, well, who are these people that are doing, you know, who are we targeting here? And so that's why we do need that 311 in there, and it's not in any of the other bills.
and
I think
would
that
you-
311
do you
is fair
object
game.
to
Yeah,
forcing,
totally.
to compelling commercial riders to wear, the identification of their,
I just don't think it's practical. I don't think it will work.
well, that's the law right now,
But-
and there are
Yeah.
some companies that do
I like
it,
the
but,
license.
but
Yeah, making
Like a
them
license.
carry
I
five
think they're
different
gonna take
jackets.
it off when they make a delivery.
Uber,
But
Uber
one
Eats,
license
seamless.
on a bike
Yeah.
is assault.
Bike licensing, I don't know. That's again why I would like somebody from the bicycle coalition to come and say, why don't you have licenses and what are your
Yeah.
objectives? You know, help us understand what would be the issue then.
Yeah. I mean, and like one of the bills that you sent today was one about like, you can't ride a bike on any electric on the park. It's like, that's ridiculous.
Well, it's,
It means you
Well,
can't
it's because
take
there's been
it.
so many run over
No,
people.
but I mean, you can't take a pedal assist city bike into
Right.
Central Park.
you,
Or on the
it's
greenway,
specifically
it's like-
exactly electric assist,
Yeah.
or scooters. And I
Oh my God, how many tourists would go wrong?
much.
They could learn a few things.
Well,
When they get on
They
city
could
bikes,
learn how,
when they get
learn-
on city bikes, it can get really scary. I don't even know why they do it. It's
They
like
can learn to
insane.
just walk on the sidewalk. As far as that goes.
Love
So
our
where
tourists.
are we at? You will not vote for any, you would not support any bill that only targeted commercial bicyclists.
Yeah, I mean, but the way it's structured now, I wouldn't be able to.
Is there a way that it can be structured, in a practical sense that doesn't involve police enforcement that you?
I can't think of one off the top of my head.
Okay.
So, yeah, it would have to apply equally to everybody who's riding and using the sidewalks, right?
I mean, it's fair game.
We should be prosecuting anybody who violates traffic rules.
Well, I wish there was, like I said before, I wish there was just zero tolerance for.
It doesn't alleviate any of your concern that the commercial rider is actually not being directly penalized because the fine, if there is a fine, goes to the company.
Yeah, I don't see that practically working either.
It's like tariffs don't raise prices.
That's what they're all going
Yeah,
after.
it's like saying China's gonna pay the price, it's not the
Right.
American consumer.
I'm with Stu on that. Yeah, I'm with Steve on that one. Yeah. And I also want to say I agree with Gloria. I think a good starting point might be to just get a bunch of people at the table and just listen to what the concerns are and see after that if we can figure out a solution. Because we have multiple different people or groups at this point, right? We have the commercial ones. We have people who commute who aren't necessarily commercial, like working for Uber or whatever, right? I think we just need to understand, and I think Gloria had a good point, is like how, like, let's just get people together and listen, figure out what the concerns are, figure out how we move forward and what the best solution is.
So who are the people you would like to bring?
And we can even have a discussion be around like the bills that are, so like, let's educate everyone about the bills and what are the concerns or the gaps. The gaps. In the
Yeah,
bills.
I mean, that's why with
Yeah.
Menon comes on.
So we need all of
Doris
that.
Representative
If
comes
we can get
on,
them-
it would be
yeah.
very helpful to see where they're
Or
at.
Alex is off.
And how they plan to implement. Like, you know, cause I can see that there's a bill that is passed as of July. About the actual sale of a bike. That has to do with the licenses, but it's like, how are they going to enforce all of these things?
Well, the proposition actually to require that the dealer immediately register
Right.
is actually a very practical.
Like you can't buy a car unless you show
Yeah.
like proof
That
of
makes sense.
insurance
I
and.
think that's a good one. That's actually gonna help.
So we want to invite these legislators, but who else do you want to invite? Then you want to invite transportation alternatives if they think to have anything to say.
I think so. Yeah.
And
And I'm interested.
Then I want a couple delivery bikers. You know, I had a great mentor. Unfortunately, she died during the pandemic, early in her life. But I loved her whole motto in life, and is first seek to understand.
Yeah,
let's find out if there is a group that represents these riders. And I don't know that there is, but it would be logical that there would be.
I
yeah.
think so.
Okay.
I'll look into
I
that.
mean, that would be
It-
something too, to ask Boris's office and the other ones that are passing these.
Right,
bills.
have they,
Do you-
have
do
they
you-
reached
I mean,
out to
you're the
them?
chair.
Yeah.
She's saying that they may have already had conversations with some of these folks.
Yeah.
Do you wanna check to see that we don't double?
Yeah.
I
I mean, they might.
I mean, I would do it if
They
you
might
want
be able
me
First
to.
of all, I have no
the
problem with redundancy.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
Except we need to be respectful because.
Well, exactly. I mean, if it's already been done, because there's been many of these bills for the street safety and they're all trying to get them passed. I wouldn't, have they talked to these people? I would think that they would have talked to them at some point.
I
You would
would
think.
suggest what you were gonna.
I know, I was just gonna say that, and I can forward this to whoever is interested. I mean, there's an article on Bloomberg. Amsterdam is a massive
Yeah.
bike
Right.
city, and they had the same problem. And they actually did institute a 55 euro fine
Yes.
for any bicyclist
Right.
riding on the sidewalk. They created a whole cadre of traffic wardens who would
Also on bikes.
That's what I mean, like a.
who would
task force.
and obviously they cannot be present on every street, every corner,
Right.
everything.
You just
But
start.
but
You
there
don't
was
have
but
to,
there was a
though.
deterrence that
Mhm.
they could be
The
somewhere.
presence of
Right.
having someone.
And they would either advise you, cajole you, or
Uh-huh.
sort of fine you.
Bust you.
Well,
right?
that's why I said
So-
go back to that task force idea, and I would like to see it put in the resolution, like, we want a task force. Because like the other departments, they have a task force. I would think that Alice Force is gonna need a task force. So is these other people that are doing this, they need a task force.
That made sense too, and not only is it not just a theoretical idea, it's worked in
It's-
another city.
and I
So,
love
like,
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like.
And that's
Walter just got
really
back from
smart, because that's
Copenhagen,
probably
she
the
said the same
biggest
thing.
bike place ever.
Well,
Like, there's a lot, Copenhagen too, but that is a huge
So we
one.
could find out
And
more information on that
NYPD
program.
I can. forward.
NYPD
Yeah, it'd be
I can
nice.
send you.
has
that.
had like bike enforcement, meaning enforcement agents that are on bikes.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know
Well,
what.
there's Red Beret
happens
guys,
there,
that's
but-
interesting. Red Beret guys that used to be on the bikes. Yeah, they were like.
But
what were
that
they
was
called?
not, wasn't that like the Angels?
Yeah,
The
something like
Guardians?
the, what were they
That
called?
was,
The Guardian Angels?
that was a very different.
No, but I mean, they were kind of a task force. They were a
I
task
know, but I
force.
hate vigilant.
Yeah,
yeah.
Very scary.
Well, what do you think these guys are gonna endure if there's a task force to stop a bicycle? Like, that's the other thing that the police officer said to us. I mean, you have to be careful about, holding on, like, somebody having a weapon or punching us or, so that task force has gotta be a woolly team.
So we do have, you're talking about equitability. And is it equitable if you put a few officers out? Who randomly choose a location for a few days and give everyone their assignment? And then they disappear. Which is the typical way that NYPD responds to these sorts of issues. They'll suddenly ticket everyone at a certain location in
Right.
in a car that's.
Just make a presence.
So I'm just worried about pragmatism, if we said, yes, it would be wonderful if we can just randomly assign 30 officers at the different corners. They give tickets out and it's a sweep and you never know where they're gonna be. I don't think it's gonna happen. And
But I mean, again, if they can do it based on 311 reporting of like, this is a hotspot of problem.
well, 311 again is not telling us where the hotspots are, it's telling us where
But
the
maybe
reporter is.
they, correct, but maybe, and they might not tell, they might tell the NYPD more than they would tell us.
They know, I think they already know because, you just look at Third Avenue and you go,
Who,
okay.
they,
Like
NYPD?
NYPD, and they know where the hotspots are. And you look at dinner hour and you can see there's, there they go. And that's a great time to get like, I guess, Third Avenue, like if they maybe even do a pilot program as a
Yeah,
test.
exactly. I don't know why it would be so unfeasible to do
Yeah,
a
and
small. pilot.
again, there's further information that in Amsterdam, it was enforced in city centers first. Because they were the hotspots. So collecting data through 311, at least will identify what the hotspots are.
Right,
Right, and then at least on the hotspots, can you target and do a pilot program on
And once again, you do have to consider cultural issues. I mean, the people who are riding on the sidewalk in Amsterdam are not commercial riders on electric
But
scooters.
there must be a mix now. Everybody,
Yeah.
everywhere, the Uber Eats and equivalent is everywhere in every city,
yeah.
especially because of
It's all-
COVID.
Yeah.
Well, is it any motorized bicycle that is going to need to have a license now?
I
Or
think
we-
that was some of the
know?
proposition, but that's not the law right now.
Because if that was, I mean, again, you're talking about just like anybody riding a bicycle on the sidewalk. It just seems like I rarely see a pedal bike going on the sidewalk. It's usually it's
And
usually-
An acoustic bicycle.
Right.
Acoustic.
I think that
Look-
is so
Look
crazy.
it up.
I
It's
think
there.
saw that.
They
I'm
should
like,
have the little things in the wheels that it actually made noise and then it really would be.
You're like we did when we were 8 years old.
Exactly.
With the cars up there. Okay, so action plan, please. We're going to continue to invite legislators to our next
Yes.
meeting. We're going to have a
I
conversation
think
with
that'll be-
TA, see if TA is interested in coming and have something to say. We will see if there's a representative of some sort of the commercial riders. And I'm forgetting something.
I think one of us should fly to Amsterdam and
Yeah,
do the
yeah.
whole.
Uh,
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
To know what's going on there.
That's the best.
Best idea. Don't pay the ticket.
And Brendan will take care of the budget.
Yes, of which the community board has endless money.
Yeah. All kinds of reasons.
That's why we're in these luxurious quarters.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Uh,
if you, it would be
because I'm
so,
being sarcastic.
it would be really great to get Alex,
Yes.
if we would, you know,
Or
we
his
would try to
office.
get Alex to come, but.
Okay, well, as it turns out, Brendan will be inviting him,
Okay.
for next month. So that's the action plan. We will keep the resolution, as it stands right now. Rather than try to modify it before we meet
Yeah.
with
We'll
people.
wait till we get more information.
Somebody had a question, I don't remember who it was, about what does it mean to table something?
I was just tabling something forward.
Basically, I mean, tabling is more like,
Actually, based on Robert's rules, as I understand it, tabling is what you do when you want it, when you have to take up another topic right away.
Oh, yeah.
It's not meant as a way to kill something, and there's
although
actually,
practically speaking, it
It
is
is.
often used.
right,
that
but there's
way.
actually another procedure, which I don't remember right now, which you would use, to bring up the subject at a specific time. But we don't need to do any of that.
No,
because
I just wanted to make sure that the question was answered.
Yeah, I think, was that the one that you answered? I don't know if it was the same one or not, but.
But
Something like that.
we're simply going to adjourn and take it up at the next meeting.
Fantastic.
So we will invite relevant people. Again, we'll also try to get who was the third? Not 311, but
Julie Menon, Alex Flores,
There's Ben, Boras, I think
TA.
Lloyd about DOT.
you said you're gonna talk to DA. and
DOT,
see-
that was it. We'll
DOT.
see, we'll see if we can get someone from DOT. Because DOT would be, in this case, for commercial riders, it would be the enforcement mechanism. But that may not make you happy, but I'm sure you'll have more rich questions to ask. Do we have any other discussion, anything else on this discussion to we're all happy.
Great discussion. I mean, really brought a
so.
lot out,
Yeah.
which is really.
No, it's good. It's not easy. This is not, yeah, no. it's
Stuff
not-
gets more complicated the
It
more you
does.
dig into it.
Well, and I appreciate that. I mean, I appreciate that we're not just writing something up that, you know, this is what we
Well,
want.
yeah,
Somebody
yeah,
figure
yeah.
out how to do it.
We want it to count, right? And then it's like,
Yeah.
again, the whole point is that to bring it up because it's not in all these other bills about this whole pedestrian safety thing. And
I think when you put the work in, it shows, and I think it earns respect from the electeds.
Yeah.
And they then pay more attention.
yeah,
Exactly,
great.
which is why
That's
we
great.
want them to be present.
Yeah.
We'll also be talking again about the scaffolding, next month. It will obviously not be next month because there's too much and, but there is an issue that we will want to address at some point about, violence from mentally or emotionally disturbed homeless people.
yeah.
This is an issue that needs to be taken up with our health committee,
Yeah.
and with homelessness. So I'm not sure whose jurisdiction this will be, or if it will be split, but I just want to mention now that this is an issue. It's obviously not specific to our district, as few issues are.
Yeah.
But it's something where, we can, with a concerted effort, try to get, specific, services in our district and see how successful we can be. So that's for the future. I just wanted to tease you with that.
Just like that scaffolding
And,
thing.
although it's probably not required, who would like to move to adjourn?
Can I bring up one?
Oh,
topic?
sure.
New business possible? So I,
Oh, I forgot new business, new old business. Sorry.
Did you
Yeah.
do a chair's report? Is that your chair's report?
Oh, I've talked enough tonight.
so, well, I forget which, I think it was transportation, but we had an idea maybe 4 or 5 months ago to use the, what are those boards called? The links?
The Link NYC?
Yeah, So I ended up reaching out to them, this is back in like July. And apparently the community boards, like you can put up advertisements or you can put
Right,
up.
I see our
Public
meetings
service.
up there sometimes.
So I
yeah.
wanted to explore and come back next month with some ideas for a resolution to take whether it's, you know, with sanitation or public safety. And come up with an idea of how we could use that to kind of as like a soft
I like that.
marketing, but if we have that, if we have access to it. And we could inform the community. I don't know what it would look like. It could look like tidbits. It could look like an image. I mean, you know, I love the AI stuff, so it could be an AI image or it could be, I don't know, but I'd like to explore that and bring that
That would
back
be
next
awesome.
month.
Yeah.
The
So,
transportation
And-
committee actually did discuss something.
well, that was, yeah, we discussed
Oh,
that.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
Are you on that committee? too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To
But-
use link NYC for
Yeah,
messaging.
maybe
Yeah.
that's where we'll let
And
all the
education.
riders know they're gonna have it.
Well, that's what you'll find.
I would just like to start looking at that, so
Yeah.
I'll, you know, cause I reached out to them back in like July,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, you have to have $10,000 to start out with, and I was like, but how about a community board? Like, oh, actually, yes, you can use that if you're a community board, so I'd like to explore that.
Nice
And if we
resource.
have it as a resource, like just, I mean, people walk by, they see little, you know, I read the signs, so
Yeah, yeah.
I'll come back.
I
think-
love
I
that.
think you've
Today
got
in New York.
enthusiasm, and you don't have to write it up as a reso. We
Yeah,
can just
some fat
discuss it.
Just on
ideas.
weekend.
Yeah,
But-
sure.
But, you know, let me know
Yeah.
so we can put it on the agenda, yeah?
Fighting at the bit, I love the idea. One of the things that I loved about our business meeting with the, you know, with the Tudor City people coming.
Yeah.
About the cannabis shop.
That
okay.
meeting.
Oh, my God. Okay,
Oh.
that was very
Yes,
effective
yeah.
and, you know, where's the community? We need to we need to engage the community more and that would be a
Yeah.
perfect way to do it. Because we are the community board. So we need to hear from the community, what they think. It'd be
But
nice
it
to
is
have
kind
like
of
a
on them
lineup of
too.
12 people here or more.
I said it's kind of on them too, like, I think we
Oh,
do
yeah.
a lot to do.
I'm not gonna go down
outreach.
that path, cause I have a lot of questions about listening to the community.
Well, you know, they can rent it, but listen, but you've
That
gotta-
it's not
you've got
done
to-
enough, I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you've got to, I think we have to engage and try to get them involved with these meetings more so we can hear what they have to say.
Yes.
And like tonight would have been great to hear
Yeah.
more of what we were
But-
all discussing.
Yeah,
I mean, like,
people that wanna
you
come
say
though,
we're
we
not
can't just, you
elected.
know.
No, you're
But
right.
we are still accountable.
I didn't say we weren't.
Okay,
I,
just saying.
I'm just saying that the pressures are different.
Yes.
And that is members of the community who will probably live here a while and don't have to.
Raise money to get reelected.
We can look at long-term solutions. We don't have to look only at solutions that look right now.
Yeah.
Right.
And, you know, whether it's crime or mental health or, you know, any of these other issues, many of the solutions are long-term. So when we look at police, that's the muscular, approach after everything else has gone wrong. What we need to do is design, design it so that things don't go wrong in the first place, because it's much harder to fix
Indeed.
something that's broken than
That's
to,
true.
than to.
Yeah.
Prevent it.
So that was, so the accountability, yes, but it's different. So now that I've been told that we have to do old and new business, is there any more?
I got nothing.
Did I forget anything?
Nope, except for the adjournment.
Who would like to move to adjourn?
Move.
It's by
I
the
move to adjourn. Who seconds my move?
Second.
Yes.
It didn't have to be seconded.
But it's so much fun second it.
This meeting is adjourned at 8:24 PM.
Thank you.